Okay, I guess in the interest of time, I suggest that we proceed with the webinar. And the webinar has been recorded just for those that might want to have a recording later on. Anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on the Vietnamese mining market. My name is Robert Trebsky and I'm the Director of International Business at Austmine. And I'm very pleased to co-host this webinar with our partners of the Australian Trade Commission, or Austrade. We appreciate your time in attending today's webinar and hope that you find this session informative and valuable to your business engagements in Southeast Asia. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of various lands on which we meet today. For me, it's the Gadigal people. I pay tribute to elders past and present. Next slide. This webinar today is part of our Southeast Asia METS engagement program being delivered in cooperation with Austrade. For those who are not familiar with your webinar hosts, Austrade, or the Australian Trade Commission and Investment Commission, is Australia's international trade and investment promotion agency. Austrade connects investors and buyers with opportunities and capabilities through foreign direct investment and trade with Australia. They have a strong presence in Southeast Asia, including offices in the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Austmine is the leading industry association for the Australian mining equipment and technologies service sector, or what we call the METS sector. Austmine exists to promote the global advancement of technology and innovation in mining. Austmine has a membership of nearly 800 companies of highly sophisticated mining technology companies and solution providers that we support through networking activities, international growth opportunities, and strategic industry programs. We're halfway through the delivery of the Southeast Asia METS engagement program. We were, of course, very pleased to have significant contingent from Vietnam attending last week's GRX, or the Global Resource Innovation Expo in Brisbane. This included a large delegation of 15+ management companies from major to state-owned firms like Vietnamese, who engaged with METS companies at the event. Ashim Mekali's CEO of Masan High-Tech Materials was also featured in our conference program and outlined his vision for critical minerals development in Vietnam. We look forward to building on the momentum of these activities to deepen METS engagement in the market. Next slide. We have a fantastic agenda lined up for you today as we explore the latest updates and opportunities from the Vietnamese mining industry. Chris Morley, Trade and Investment Commissioner, Austrade, Vietnam, will provide a presentation shortly to set the scene for Australian METS interest in Vietnam. He will overview the market, outline key trends and challenges, identify key mining organizations, and provide some advice on entering Vietnam. Following Chris' presentation, Nguyen Thanh Hai's Special Counsel Energy Mining Infrastructure at Baker McKenzie, Vietnam, will provide an important update on mining law changes in Vietnam and what that means for potential development. Following Nguyen's presentation, I will hand over back to Chris Morley to run the panel discussion. This will feature insights on primary METS opportunities, industry developments, development needs, and doing business in Vietnam from Todd Sheedy, Contracts Manager, Country Manager, Vietnam, Minco, Johnny Case, Business Development Manager, CR powered by Epiroc, and Nguyen Thanh Hai, Special Counsel, Energy, Mining, Infrastructure, Baker McKenzie, Vietnam. We will then conclude the session with some final updates and reminders on the next activities in our Southeast Asia METS engagement program. Next slide. Before I hand over to Chris, I would like to set the scene by providing a refresh on findings of for the Vietnam from Austmine's report on METS opportunities Southeast Asia, which kicked off our program. These trends and opportunities will be explored more throughout today's webinar, along with receiving additional insights and new updates from our great speakers. Vietnam's minerals wealth largely remains unexploited and has significant endowments of coal, bauxite, rare earths, gold, iron ore, zinc, copper, and tin. Recent changes to mining laws are seeking to encourage investment and boost exploration spending. Vietnam has potential as a global hub for aluminium production, boasting the world's third largest reserve of bauxite. Current mining production is largely centralized through state-owned enterprise, Vietnam, along with other smaller players. At a high level, what does this mean for metals companies from Australia? Well, there is three key areas in particular that Australia can support through technology solutions and expertise. Firstly, exploration. Solutions such as geophysical service, remote sensing and satellite imagery, drilling services, and geographic information systems, GIS, needed to reduce exploration costs and fast-track new mines. Secondly, training and education. Academic institutions and private training providers have phenomenal opportunity to develop collaboration with Vietnamese entities to deepen the mining knowledge and technical skills base. Thirdly, bauxite, aluminium supply chain. Various investments have been announced to develop bauxite reserves, and this will provide new opportunities for Australian metals. With that high-level overview out of the way, I'd like now to introduce Chris Morley, Trade and Investment Commissioner, Austrade, Vietnam, to take a deeper dive into the market. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Robert, and good afternoon, good morning, and maybe even a good evening to all attendees. It's good to see a few familiar faces online. In about 10 minutes or so over this presentation, we're going to look at the country of Vietnam, some of the high-level mining opportunities, and then some of the brief subsector opportunities as well. But I really want to reiterate that these slides will be made available to you at the end of the presentation, and you'll be able to go through the detail in your own time. So certainly, whilst there's a fair few slides we'll go through, we will be giving these to you at the end of the presentation as well to go into more detail. If we can go ahead to the next slide, and we'll jump one more. We don't need to see my face again. But I am the Trade and Investment Commissioner based here in Hanoi in the Australian Embassy. Robert gave a pretty good overview of Austrade. Really, if you haven't worked with Austrade before, I like to say the three things we do are insights, information, and introduction. So we have a range of offices around the globe, and we have a really great, wonderful team of BDMs that are extremely well connected into the corporate and government worlds in those markets to help you understand that market before you even go there, and then help you with boots on the ground and introductions when you do come into the different markets as well. So we are the Commonwealth Government's Trade, Promotion and Investment Facilitation Agency, and we're really here to help you with your export journey. Next slide, thank you. So let's talk about Vietnam. We'll go to the next slide as well. So just a couple of key things I want to make a bit of a call out. Vietnam, a single party country. There's over 100 million people. This is also the fastest growing country in Southeast Asia, if not the world. The forecast growth here is for 8%. That may take a bit of a hit pending some tariffs that are currently on hold. But fundamentally, this is a country that's attracting a lot of Western or a lot of foreign investment, a lot of government investment into infrastructure, and we're seeing an emerging middle class and above that's driving a new economic growth here in Southeast Asia. One other key thing to note is that Vietnam is a country that's believed in the rules-based order for a number of years and is a signatory to over 17 free trade agreements, and really is an exporting manufacturing hub of the region and the globe, which is so important to some of the mining resources and supply chains as well. Next slide, thank you. I'll just make a quick call out here that I think the manufacturing industry that I mentioned before accounts for about 25% of the GDP growth, and what we're expecting that to continue to grow as Vietnam looks to sort of shift from what's been more traditional or lower end manufacturing in textile, clothing, footwear to more higher end manufacturing, looking to do a lot more electronic and those sort of digital devices as well. The other commitments there by the government, very similar to the Australian government, is a net zero by 2050, and Vietnam is undergoing a rapid shift to renewable energies, trying to go to that as quickly as possible. Next slide, thank you. One key thing that we have with Vietnam, a key diplomatic document, is a comprehensive strategic partnership. This is the highest level of diplomatic relations that Vietnam has. We're one of 12 countries in the world that has this. And this is really important because in a single party government, when you have that government saying Australia is trusted, Australia is a good friend, Australia can be relied on, it filters down into every aspect of daily life where the government own all the media, and you'll see business and consumer decisions actively influenced here by the fact that the government is saying Australia is trusted. We are a comprehensive strategic partner with them. So it's a really important document that's helping drive our bilateral relations. Next slide, thank you. Just some of our bilateral trade. I think it's important to note our bilateral trade is increasing by about 3% year on year. And no surprise to see some of our key exports to Vietnam. And as we're seeing that shift here in Vietnam manufacturing, no surprise to see some of that shifting to more digital electronic stuff products as well. Next slide, thank you. The investment into Vietnam, we used to be a fairly major investor. We're now about ranked 22nd, but you can see there on the screen some of the companies that have been able to continue that and persevere with Vietnam and have seen some commercial success with their investment in Vietnam. It's quite a broad, diverse range of Australian sectoral companies that are seeing success with their investment in market. Next slide, thank you. Now, I just want to highlight three quick programs that the government has rolled out. So we had the Southeast Asia Economic Program Strategy to 2040. This was a document put together by Mr. Nicholas Moore, former CEO of Macquarie Bank, that really looked at how can Australia capitalise on the growth in Southeast Asia. And in this document were 80 recommendations that the government has been looking to enact and actually really capitalise on the growth of Southeast Asia. And next slide, thank you. One of these recommendations was an investment deals team. So this is a team that's here in Vietnam, as well as the other 6 markets of Southeast Asia, that is actively supporting Australian businesses who want to come and invest in Vietnam or the other markets of Southeast Asia. So we now have boots on the ground that can help you understand what's happening on the ground by way of investment and support that investment into market. Next slide, thank you. The other program we're operating is the Southeast Asia Business Exchange. And we've had a number of these missions run to the region, including Vietnam, where we've had a focus on green skills, resources, and the economy, as well as education. And these are high-level missions, usually led by a minister or similar, who's able to get some traction in these markets and build some better bilateral relations and lead these delegations across the globe. You'll see a number of these Southeast Asia Business Exchange missions being promoted for the region in the next coming year as well. Next slide, thank you. And the final one I want to highlight is our landing pads. And so these are providing an opportunity for companies looking to enter Vietnam as well as Indonesia and allow those companies to have a bit of a virtual leg up and understand more of the digital space and the ICT world of those 2 markets. And there's a government-led program to support digital and applications and software to engage with their technological solutions into those markets. So if that is part of your MET sector, that's something we're looking to help you with as well. Next slide, thank you. And we'll jump ahead again. Thanks. So just talk quickly about the mining. As sort of Robert alluded to, there's some impressive minerals and resources that are here in Vietnam. We've had some roadblocks by way of progress and looking to update the progress and move forward a little bit more in the near future with updates to the mining law, which I know that Mr. High will discuss in his presentation. But I think it's important to note that we've been doing some mapping and a little bit of awareness, but certainly there's a lot more need for exploration into the mining sector of Vietnam. And we're actively seeing Australian companies support that exploration as well. Next slide, thank you. Robert touched on this, some of the key mineral outputs at the moment, but also then the forecast that's likely to occur in the future as well. And that really brings forward a lot of opportunities for our mining sector as well. Next slide, thank you. I think overall, we're looking at the rare earth market trend. We understand that Vietnam has the 6th largest globally, but very few have the mining license to actually export. There's still a lot of restrictions on some of those, some of the movements, but we have seen a few different investors coming in to really try and capitalise on the rare earths and critical minerals, including some Australian-led and Australian-supported organisations that have come into the country and have built up their supply chain or their resources on the ground to try and engage in these sectors. Next slide, thank you. This is just again looking at those different trends of the production of coal and bauxite. So we'll skip ahead to the next slide. Thank you. Regulation, I won't steal Mr. High's thunder. He's going to talk a little bit about this, but this is an exciting development. I will say this, that hopefully by the 1st of July and beyond, we'll see a lot more regulation improvement for the geology and mining law, and that will open up a huge commercial opportunity for our partners and our companies up here. Next slide, thank you. Just a little bit about our cooperation on mining. We're seeing, a couple of leading investors in the market. We're seeing a lot of MOUs being signed. We're seeing a lot of support by way of supporting the draft mining laws. And we've had a lot of workshops here at the Embassy, which have seen a range of Australia's supply chain within the mining sector add their voice and add their experience to help develop what is a really key document to unlock Vietnam's mining legislation. Next slide, thank you. So the next series of slides actually looks at a lot of the different subsectors of opportunity within Vietnam. And as I said, we're going to make these slides available. So we will skip through these fairly quickly. But I think, as Robert articulated at the start, exploration is certainly one area where we're seeing a lot of interest. And we've seen some Australian companies being able to capitalise on that interest and the need to start that exploration and understand what exactly is in the ground and how much of it and where is it. So we see serious opportunities in that sector. Next slide, thank you. Development as well is another area where we've seen a lot of interest. Coal has been mined for a long time, but hasn't really utilised a lot of technology. So we know there's a lot of opportunities for our technology companies and our mining support organisation. I think our ability in bauxite and copper will also help open up those markets as well. Next slide, thank you. So minerals processing, again, we see this as an opportunity. There's a whole host of processing plans that are being implemented. And we know that there's a range of different organisations that are looking to take advantage of those areas and those processing plants as well. Next slide, thank you. Steel, Vietnam is a major steel producer, and Australia's played a role in that. Unfortunately, the tariffs from the US may make this sector a little bit less export friendly, but certainly there's enough demand on the local infrastructure needs to continue to drive steel manufacture and processing here in Vietnam. Next slide, thank you. And alumina, as was alluded to earlier, was the bauxite reserves globally that Vietnam has. We understand this is going to continue to be a huge source of opportunity for Australian organisations. Next slide, thank you. And refinery, and for the nickel and copper, again, another sector where we're seeing some good opportunities once these laws are enacted as well. Next slide, thank you. I might just go to the next slide because I know that this will be touched on by Mr. High. So I think really where we're seeing the overall challenges, and it's important to acknowledge this is a tough market at the moment and hopefully will become easier. Language is still a barrier by way of a lot of mining companies not having a labour skills gap or a knowledge gap by way of a lot of English speakers. Communication, as a result, can often be more timely, and having a local partner becomes absolutely crucial, or leveraging the badge of government to help you with those introductions and attend meetings where possible. We also know some resources are being rapidly depleted through poor mining or other mining that's going on, with a range of different illegal mining, and this is something the government has been actively trying to cut down on in the past with a lot of the legislation and also the crackdown on corruption in market, which has led to other issues around pollution and then safety. And as we've mentioned a lot, the regulation is still somewhat of an issue. But we generally see opportunities around sustainable mining, definitely around the critical minerals. We see this as being a really key area for Vietnam to continue to grow in. Our met sectors have a range of opportunities to capitalise on the subsectors that we've just gone through. And obviously the ongoing commodities from Australia will continue to provide opportunities in markets for the growing economy of Vietnam. Next slide, thank you. Some of these key players will be known to you, but it's obviously important to note that Vietnamese, the National Coal Mining Industries Corporation, is the biggest and one of the major players up here, and one that we need to be connected to at certain times. Next slide, thank you. And just a bit about what we're doing. We work really closely with Austmine, not just for these presentations, but for other workshops and other pieces of important dialogue and engagement with members. We work with the state and territories. We work with DFAT and DISA. We've had our critical mineral supply chain report issued by KPMG. We have a range of different research presentations that we're conducting with Austmine and other players to help inform you of the market and the opportunities. And we're looking to deliver on that Southeast Asia economic strategy, which I mentioned earlier, which will have a range of different resources to hopefully support your market entry into Vietnam. So Robert, I'll finish there and pass back to you to introduce Mr. Hai. And just a reminder for everyone, those slides will be made available to you. I know I went through them fairly quickly, but hopefully you'll find some more information in them for you after the presentation. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Chris. That was a great overview on the opportunities and challenges. Thanks a lot. There are a few questions in the Q&A box. Maybe we deal with them at the end of the panel discussion. So it is now a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Hai, Special Counsel, Energy, Mining and Infrastructure at Baker McKenzie in Vietnam, who will provide some insights into recent critical mining law changes and in Vietnam, obviously. Welcome, Mr. Hai.
Thank you, Robert. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Hai. I'm a legal advisor at Baker McKenzie Vietnam's international law firm operating here in Vietnam for 30 years. So in the next 10 minutes or so, I will try to give you some quick update and about the new mining law of Vietnam and how it impacts to your business and activity in Vietnam and how to support the sector. First, in terms of the overview of Vietnamese legal landscape, right now the law of Vietnam have been developed quickly in the last recent years with a new framework. So right now, basically the mining in the mining sector, many regulations have been issued covering the full state of mining sector from upstream to midstream and downstream, and covering not just the specific mining regulation, but also the taxation and investment regime and trade and investment environmental aspect as well. But I would like to highlight that the mining law, particularly the new law on geology and mineral issue last year, have been replaced the previous 2012 mineral law. This had been a comprehensive reform in the legal framework. Basically, the framework will be designed in two key areas. One is the overall strategy, policy, and master planning have been developed in the last 3 years. And then the legal framework, how to implement and how to support the player in the sector. First, in terms of overall strategy, policy, and master planning. So basically, there are quite a few important documents have been issued, design the sector for a long term. I think Chris also mentioned earlier the Politburo Resolution 10 issued 3 years ago, designed a strategy for mining sector until 2030 with a vision of 2045. This is the highest authority in Vietnam to make an emphasis about importance of this sector. Prime Minister also issued quite a few decisions, including the strategy decision 334 in 2023, and then master planning for mining sector, and then the implementation plan for master plan also issued last year to set out the long-term planning for mining sector. In terms of legal framework, as we also aware of, right? So the new law on geology and mineral had been issued in November last year. Chris also mentioned earlier, from the 1st of July would be the important date for effectiveness of the new law here. And also following that, quite a number of decree and circular of the relevant ministry to provide more detail about the implementation of the new law. One of the key documents right now is still missing and being finalized, the implementation decrees of the government, providing a number of detailed regulation. But in this presentation, I will also highlight some of the key provision later on as well. In terms of overall objective, when the government of Vietnam designed the new law, I would pick up a few key objectives from the strategy. First, Vietnam tried to strictly manage and exploit and process and economic and effective use of mineral resources. So I think that is the first objective. The second is to promote investment and trying to have effective exploration and all state development from to processing downstream as well with the advanced technology and modern equipment. So I think advanced technology and modern equipment is one of the key highlights in the new framework compared to the previous law, and one of the important emphasis. The third important emphasis is there's specific regulation about critical mineral. The law used the concept of strategic important mineral, but is similar to critical mineral, focusing on some of the most important mineral and activity in collaboration with relevant country. And I think one of the key emphasis is to prioritize those players who have capability and able to support on the processing as well with the advanced technology and modern equipment. So again, this is important emphasis in the law compared to the previous law. And last but not least, trying to manage the efficiency to limit some of the low reserve or small scale mines in the strategy to be more efficient. If we look at some of the specific objective for different mineral, we also see for bauxite or titanium, rare earth, nickel or copper, also on gold are also highlighted with some of the idea to develop and attract more capable investor and supplier and equipment provider, technology provider for the sector as well. And I think one of the next important change in the new law compared to the previous law is the way of the classification of different types of mineral. So have been based on the use and management purposes for a key group of mineral have been set out and will detail in the upcoming decrees. Group one, I think most important and relevant to you is covering the metal mineral or energy mineral or other industrial mineral. This also include the critical mineral as well. So I will be highlighted more detail in the regulation for this group. In terms of the critical mineral, as I mentioned, it's a key focus here. The law actually used the name strategic and important in the Vietnamese law context. And the definition in the law is quite general, basically essential mineral with the sustainable social economic development, and the second purpose is national defense or national security. The law also listed out, this is in the master plan, but basically mentioned some of the kinds of key mineral at focus in Vietnam, for example, bauxite, titanium, rare earth, chromite, nickel, copper, gold, and have been highlighted in the relevant master plan I mentioned earlier. But the law will just provide general principle. Going forward, the Prime Minister will decide the list of specific from time to time. In terms of the state policy of Vietnam, basically to focusing on some specific mechanism for critical mineral, and a certain area may not require auction, but they can be subject to a G2G or inter government agreement to discuss. For example, Australia and Vietnam have been, as Chris also mentioned, have been a lot of activity to support this initiative. State budgets also prioritize for the use of critical mineral for survey and geological as well. And also the for foreign player like Australian developer, supplier, and contractor, I think it's important to ensure that the market access under the relevant treaty between Australia and Vietnam and relevant international trade will be compliant and domestic regulation as well. I will be highlight quickly on those areas later on. And I mentioned earlier, one of the key documents is the implementing decrees will be issued soon for effectiveness on the 1st of July. And I will highlight the key regulation here for your attention for strategic and important mineral, both for investment and also supplier and equipment service provider as well. So for mineral, the idea is to focus on radioactive mineral, rare earth element, and essential mineral, as I mentioned. The Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, this is a new name for MONRE before, will be the leading ministry to prepare the list of this type of mineral. They will coordinate with the MOIT, the Ministry of Industry and Trade, from the trading and investment perspective and relevant ministry. And as I mentioned, GC will add addition on to the regulation for Group 1 metal mineral in general. So this is an addition requirement. And their provision mentioned about the confidentiality regime for unpublic data. So it means that the government have some sensitivity around the data for mining sector, particularly critical mineral. But I think there's still room for support. Because of importance of these types of mineral, the Prime Minister will have authority to make decisions on certain key area. For example, the organization of the geological investigation or of the survey, and also exploration funded by state, or any waiver for auction for certain area for critical mineral, or allow for the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment to issue license for investor or international corporation. Those will be under Prime Minister decision. So it means that it shows the importance of this group of mineral. Now I focus more on some of the key regulation for both exploration and exploitation state. Firstly, exploration state. I think the key regulation here is that the regulation will be designed in the way that they would be try to attract more capable investor or player and supplier with advanced technology, with capability. So the new regulation compared to the previous one introduce some additional requirement for financial capability and history, experience, and also technical capability. For example, application for exploration rights need to have financial capability for implement the entire exploration project, and also have certain history, like no criminal liability violation in the last 5 years or so. It participate in the mineral activity in Vietnam. And as I said, the foreign investor need to be aligned with the international inter-government G2G agreement like Australia and Vietnam for support better in the operation. For service provider or equipment contractor provider, I think it's important to note that there would be some regulation requiring some of the qualification or technical capability, or the equipment will be those who meet certain technical requirement or standard. So going forward, the relevant ministry will develop, update the relevant technical standard as well, and to be compliant with, to attract the capable player. In the exploitation state, similarly, for investor need to get the approval for the project in the usual investment law, but they also bring in contractor, supplier, and equipment for the proposed project, including the experience for implementing large-scale mineral mining project, comply with safety and environmental standard, or they need to meet with certain requirement for equipment. It need to be modern, suitable for relevant technology, and also digitalization or more detail about financial plan need to be set out. So these are general decree, but I believe that going forward, the government of Vietnam continue to develop the framework to provide more detail on a project by project basis or different types of mineral. And again, basically the regulation not just cover this state, but also broadly cover processing, trading based on the relevant treaty and existing framework. But in 10 minutes, I will just want to highlight some of the key area in the law and implementing decrees. Hope that would be useful for everyone. Thank you very much for your attention. So that's about it from my end. So now I would like to hand over back to Robert for the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hai. And here, context, it was great to see that level of detail on all the changes in the legal framework. Following these fantastic insights from Chris and Mr. Hai, we have a diverse panel of experts to provide a perspective on the latest updates and business opportunities in Vietnam. To introduce our panel and moderate this session, I'm pleased to welcome back Chris Morley. Thank you, Chris, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert. And I'll ask if Todd and Mr. Hai and Johnny can turn on their camera and unmute themselves as well. I know there's a few questions coming through in the chat, and I think we can try and address some of those as well with the panel. But to start with, I can see Todd. How are you, mate? Good to see you again. I might ask you the first question, and as part of your reply, if you can just quickly introduce yourself and Mincor. But yeah, really keen to hear on what motivated Mincor's decision to establish operations in Vietnam. We've highlighted some of the challenges and opportunities before, but what have been some of the key advantages and challenges that you've encountered, and particularly things around workforce capability, business admin, and just any local regulations that sort of come to mind. But yeah, thank you, Todd.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chris, and hello to everyone that's online. Yeah, my name is Todd Sheedy. I'm the contracts manager and Vietnam country manager for Mincor. So my role is to look after all commercial aspects of the operation and lead the project services function, which is contracts, procurement, logistics, cost control, and schedule. By way of background, I've been very fortunate to have worked in Vietnam on and off for 6 years. So Mincor, just to give you the context as well, is a multidisciplinary engineering consultancy company. We offer a full range of engineering services and feasibility studies, and we do EPC and EPCM services. And we have our head office in Melbourne, Australia, and we have our office in Hanoi. Yeah, we undertake projects all around the world and for all range of different sort of minerals. So yeah, Chris, to sort of answer your question, what sort of motivated Mincor to set up something in Vietnam? So we were fortunate a couple of years back to do some work with Masan High Tech on a project, and we partnered up with a local engineering firm at that time to provide us with some support, and we discovered that the level of engineering capability and the labour costs, and also the team that we worked with our partner, everyone was very engaged, dedicated, hardworking, and we saw a great potential in Vietnam and also the mining industry in Vietnam. And we decided that the best way to sort of foster that was to have a presence in Vietnam. And we also believe that some of the engineering and service team could sort of, if we establish something in Vietnam, support our Australian office as well, and also our expansion plans into Southeast Asia. So that was kind of the motivation from it, and it sort of happened just by doing some work in Vietnam. So some of the advantages that we've seen, it's obviously a very cost-effective area for talented labour, and also from an operational point of view, it's quite cost-effective. It allows us to be more competitive on our Australian projects by providing some of those services out of our Vietnam office. And it also provides us with an even sort of playing field when we tender on work to work in Southeast Asia as well. So, you know, the workforce is skilled. We've managed to find some excellent talent along the way. One real advantage we've had is we've been able to build relationships with local suppliers and service providers, and then leverage those relationships across our worldwide sort of portfolio of projects. And now we're having, you know, materials from Vietnam sent to other parts of the world. So it's really developed that two-way relationship really well by having a presence here. And then another advantage of setting things up and how things have gone for us as a company, the support we've received in setting up the business and establishing ourselves from yourself, Chris, and the Austrade team of Tang and Miss Hua, and everyone all the way through to the outgoing ambassador, Andrew. You've been able to provide us with, you know, the right advisors and help facilitate the business establishment and connect us with the right people, and same with Global Victoria and Austmine. I don't think we would have been able to set things up without that sort of support. So that's been good in regards to local regulations and business. So some of the challenges, regulation and setting up the business it was a real steep learning curve for us in navigating the regulations, in establishing the registration for the business, the licensing and the banking. We made some mistakes along the way, and, you know, we didn't necessarily understand everything, as you don't when you go into something. But the support we've received to help navigate that has been good. So we've overcome most of those challenges now. The normal challenges of having a regional office. So you'd expect to have an office in another part of the world, some different ways of thinking. Our age difference is a little bit. The Vietnam team is a bit younger than our Australian team. Some different skill sets and experience. There's the language challenges, different time zones and different cultures. So they're always going to be a challenge, and that's something that we've got a lot better at over time. And then the other challenge is sort of relationships. It takes time to establish and grow that network of relationships, and it's really important. And it's really part of the Vietnamese culture to do business here by building up those relationships. So that's taken some time to do from a standing start. And but we're getting a lot better at that.
Thanks, Todd. And I'm really glad you highlighted the importance of relationship building. It's something I wish I actually mentioned in the first 10 minutes, but this is a relationship market, much more than a transactional market that you may have experienced in other sort of Western markets, but definitely Southeast Asia is relationship driven, and you need the 3 to 4 meetings before you're even really doing any sort of business and understanding their family goals and aspirations, and then you'll talk business. So it's a good shout out. If I can get Johnny Cates to join the conversation and turn his camera and microphone on. We're keen to hear from you, Johnny, if you're ready and here.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? My camera's on.
There we are. Got you. Good to see you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Chris.
As part of the answer, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your organisation, but you know, CR is known for its advanced equipment and technology, and we're keen to know what your strategies have been to introduce those into the market and selling the innovation into a Vietnamese market. And just, again, if you're able to share your experience in working with those customers, and, you know, Todd mentioned culture, and just curious as to how that's impacted your sort of methodology in engaging different customers in market. But thank you, Johnny, over to you.
Welcome. Thank you, Chris. Johnny Cates, I'm the Business Development Manager for CR Mining, 100% owned by Epiroc now, as of 2 years ago. Epiroc's a global leader in mining equipment across every corner of the world, and CR has been established in Brisbane for 40 years as a world leader in GET, ground engagement tools, and also digital solutions. My role is growth markets, so I have been working a lot on the Indian market, where Austrade has been absolutely fantastic with Partha and Denise and the team there. And it's been another big challenge, but been fantastic outcomes and collaboration with Austrade and Epiroc. Also focused on Saudi Arabia, which is another growth market, and a number of countries in Southeast Asia like Vietnam. So we're very new to Vietnam, but I'd like to share some experiences around working with Austrade, Austmine and our mothership Epiroc, who are established in Vietnam for many years, and just gaining an understanding of how different that market is to some of the other markets that we're working on or dealing with throughout the world that do have high growth. And certainly listening to Todd and Chris, there's a lot of resonating comments there, and certainly Vietnam's a relationship-based market. I would say very similar to India, where understanding the culture is really important. Understanding the people, and you know, sometimes when you look at different markets, there are hierarchical structures around management and executives, and understanding that, but also really respecting every level of business. Respecting the local culture is critical, and what type of partnerships you can establish right up front, and also gathering the necessary market intelligence that's already been shared today, which is really important to have that foundation and have an understanding and a realistic expectation of the market you're coming into. So we've always worked closely with Austrade, and all the other markets we've worked in, we've had incredible support around market intelligence. The Austrade team and also Austmine team know a lot of folk on the ground really well. There's long-term relationships already established. They know the culture. So working with them, understanding what we're going into, traveling to those markets, working with Austrade. In our case, we're grateful to be owned by Epiroc. So, for example, in India, they've been there 60 years. I know in Vietnam, they've been there a very long time. So really learning from them first, the culture, really learning about the relationship, dealing with companies, understanding the mining sector, what are our target markets? And you mentioned Vietnamese, a state-run entity. Again, that's a step-by-step process that involves the building of trust. That's really important. And I know right now with GPX, they've been visiting Australia, they're still here, and having that face-to-face in Australia, but also our mission to visit Vietnam and have continual face-to-face meetings is absolutely paramount, like the other growth markets. So having those alliances, working with federal government in Australia, where they have a very strong drive to promote METS companies. And certainly besides our company and with Todd and many others, there's a lot of great technology and innovation coming out of Australia. And so how do we collaborate together? How do we learn together and grow together into these new markets? Also understanding, which I've picked up in Vietnam, is there's a lot of contractors that are really working for these owner operators and dealers. So knowing how they operate, every country is quite different. I know in Australia, many mining tech companies go direct to the owner operator and form that relationship there, whereas the contractors have a lot of pull in Vietnam and very strong relationships. And again, language barrier, the cultural barrier sometimes. So understanding on the ground, having the right people there that you trust. And in our case, it's Epiroc and Austrade, where they can provide that cultural conduit, or that conduit around language, which is really important, and understanding, because coming back to India briefly, you may hear something or receive something that you interpret as a certain message, but it's another type of message. So really understanding the communication channels and how that's delivered, but also in the local network, those dealerships and contractors. Also pushed again in a positive way by Austrade is focusing on a pipeline of attending mining associations or joining associations and mining events. In other growth markets, we've attended trade events where we've had a stand there, either ourselves or with Epiroc. That's really important for face-to-face and actually physically showing the technology. I mean, you can't always with GET, but at least a scaled-down version. And some demo versions from a digital standpoint is very important, and being visible. So it's great to have teams. It's great to have different channels to communicate, but face to face is the way to build trust. So I suppose that's really in brief, and looking at the timing of everything. what's important. Pricing is also very important from our understanding. And certainly there's Chinese product very close. We have a foundry there. So having some type of manufacturing capability, having some joint venture around adding value to the local economy and employment is really important. Because we are a foundry making GET and car slips, having that local logistical capability to supply in the region, but being, as we say, one team, one dream, so that there's a local business that's supporting us. And also back to the pricing, that gives us a competitive edge into the future around pricing because of local manufacturing and supply, but also around them looking deeper at cost of ownership, return on investment with what they're purchasing on a product. How much is that going to cost us over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And you may sometimes see a competing product from China or elsewhere. They go, it's much cheaper. But when you start to measure up, in our case, the wear life, the less maintenance schedules and all these other parameters that we measure cost of ownership, it starts to show a lot of gains. But going into the detail around the quality and I suppose the value proposition of that is very important. Okay, well, that's me. I'm looking at time with only 9 minutes to go. Hopefully that helps somewhat, and I'll hand it back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Johnny. And I think you actually answered one of the questions quite well that came up in the chat about pricing and low pricing over quality. I agree with you, Johnny. I think sometimes as Australian exporters, if we're having a conversation about price, we're having sort of an unsophisticated conversation where they haven't quite understood the value of what we're presenting. And it's not just in mining, but we see it in agriculture, healthcare, and a range of other offerings from Australia where we are a premium provider of those goods and services. Mr. High, if I can ask you to turn your camera and microphone back on. There's 2 questions that I might ask for you to just address in the Q&A, and I'll read them out for you as well, Mr. High. So the first one, and they're kind of linked, is just about does Vietnam have any regulations, laws in place for managing extracted groundwater from current or future mining activities? Any managed aquifer recharge programs that have been implemented or being considered? And then just the second one is around regulations set for mine closure or post-mine use, and are miners required to report CO2 and methane output? Thank you, Mr. High.
Sure. Thank you, Chris, and thank you for the question. So first, in terms of extracted groundwater related questions. So basically, this briefly cover in the mining law, particularly the group 3 or so related area. But I think this also cover briefly in other regulation, like regulation on water, regulation on investment in general, and land and resource. So I think this is no specific one comprehensive regulation on this, but I think we need to look at many other regulations relevant to this one. But Vietnam do have some regulation around this area. The second one, in terms of mine closure and post mine uses. Yes, in the law, actually, there are a chapter mentioned about the procedure for closure of mine. And in the implementing decrees, they also set out a regulation process for application for appraisal from the Geology and Mineral Department under the Ministry of Agriculture and Environment. And basically, the investor, the project company, needs to submit an application for that. And after certain appraisal process, then the authority will issue the approval for that process. So I think there have been quite a detailed regulation already in place in the draft decrees for that process. The next one is more about reporting. Yes, the answer is yes. CO2 emission regulation have been in place, not detailed here in the mining law, but already detailed in the law on environmental protection. Basically, there are decree 06 and amended recently, and decree 08 from the same ministry, Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, basically set out the monitoring process, inventory process, reporting mechanism for greenhouse gases emission reporting. So they do have that kind of regulation in place.
Thank you.
I think
Yep. There was also another question there on on mine closures, and I think our experience has also been that in the past, mine closures as a result in those areas becoming a bit in ruin and overgrown with fields and barren soil. And I know there was a gold mine in Bong Meal which had a similar sort of end of its life. But as you said, the new mining law will state that the organised closure of those mines and look after that area a lot more. I might just address 2 other questions or 3 other questions were there before I go to the panel for one final word. But there's a question about biochar production. We understand that Vietnam will have its first biochar factory in 2026. This will be done by Husk. Husk is operating in Cambodia and is certified by the EU. And I think the plant will be based in the Mekong Delta and have a capacity for about 3,000 tonnes of biochar. There was a question about urban mining and recycling recovery. This is quite minimal, quite small in Vietnam. Generally, we've seen it more concerned with primary extraction. I think in the future, there'll be some amazing opportunities in recycling and urban mining. I think that's probably short-term focus ahead. And there was one other question about joining the CBIX missions. That's definitely something that Austrade can help you with. So we will reach out to all those that we see relevant for those CBIX missions in the future and make sure you're invited. Now, before I go back to Robert for him to close out, I think let's keep the positive tone of the presentation, and maybe I'll just go to Todd first, then Johnny, and then Mr. Hyatt, and just ask them for one. What's the most promising opportunity, and then what's your one recommendation for Australian businesses coming to Vietnam? So, Todd, for you first, most promising and best recommendation.
Yeah, so I think the overall presentation today, you mentioned it, Chris, in your presentation, and Mr. High as well. There's a huge amount of potential. Vietnam is a young, well-educated, and hardworking country that's growing rapidly. When it comes to the mining and industrial sector, you can see there's significant mineral wealth within the country, and you can see from High's presentation that's supported at a strategic level from the government. And also one of those slides that High presented was that there's a real focus for the government in regards to making sure that mines are opened up at scale and also using develop large mines with the latest technology. So that's a mandate from the government, which I think is really positive, and I think it also plays well into the Australian met companies that maybe have some of that technology and that experience from working in Australia and other parts of the world. So a couple of takeaways or a couple of recommendations. So try and get your technology into the hands of the designers or the engineers or the people up front as much as possible. If that's possible, then that sort of flows on and they consider it in when they're developing these sort of mines and doing expansions and things like that. And just to bring it back again to partnerships, I see a lot of value in partnering with Vietnamese companies. Lead to mutual beneficial sort of outcomes where you might be able to bring your specialist technology or knowledge, and they can also bring their understanding of the market. They have the existing contacts and relationships, and also how to navigate the regulatory environment as well. So yeah, I think it's really positive and really exciting sort of future.
Thanks, Todd. I'll pass to Johnny for the same question.
Yeah, briefly, Vietnamese is our primary target, the state-run entity, and as I said, they're visiting here at present. The takeaways, the key things we're learning is really having a presence there, being persistent and patient at the same time, and respectful of the culture and relationships of that scale or any mid to large tier scale of mining takes time. And that is certainly being present on the ground. And finally, huge gratitude to Austrade. We've gone in growth markets. They've had a massive impact on our growth. And Hoa and Max and the team on the ground have been fantastic. So a big thank you to them.
Thank you, Johnny. I'll make sure that shout out gets to both those amazing Oz traders as well. And Mr. Hyde, just quickly from you, I guess, what recommendation and most promising opportunity that you see?
Yes, thanks, Chris. I think I fully agree with Tosh and Johnny and you, Chris, about your your team, and I also optimistic and see a lot of positivity along the legal framework and policy have been developed recently. If we compare to the previous law, we see a lot of improvement, enhancement, and more focused on capable and player, and trying to make it a more closer and tighter relationship between relevant international partners like Australia and Vietnam, and more room, more opportunity for player to collaborate and work in Vietnam, not just in the investment, supply, EPC, but also the processing and downstream sector as well. So I see a lot of reconnection between different sectors as well. So I see a lot of activity. But in terms of framework, Vietnam still have a quite comprehensive and complex framework. So I think knowing the law is also important to capture the opportunity easily. Yeah, that's all from my part. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much, Mr. Hai. And apologies, Robert, I'm getting back to you a little later than one would have liked in the central commentary position, but back to you to close out. And thanks to all the panel for their wonderful sharing. But thanks, Robert.
Fantastic. That was a very informative and educational panel discussion. Next slide, please. Okay, we got the slide. So this now brings us to the conclusion of today's webinar. Before we finish, we would like to highlight some of key upcoming activities in our Southeast Asia METS engagement program. So this was the final session in our market webinar aspects of the program. Next, we will provide more in-depth market training programs focused on Indonesia and the Philippines to prepare companies for offshore activities to conclude the program. These training initiatives will be launched soon and will educate participants on critical business practices, market entry strategies, and important networks to develop business. Please stay tuned for more information on this program, which will be communicated soon. Following that, we conclude the Southeast Asia engagement program, METS engagement program, with 2 Austrade-led activities in the region. Austrade will host the Australian Pavilion of Mining Indonesia in October. I believe it's September, October, let's verify this, which is the largest mining trade show in South Asia. After that, a delegation of METS companies will visit the Philippines in November for business meetings in Manila and participation at the Mine Safety and Environment Conference in Baguio. Hopefully the pronunciation is correct. If you're interested in these activities, please get in touch with Austmine or the Austrade team to receive more information. Next slide. Finally, you can download the METS Opportunities in Southeast Asia report to get more in-depth information about each major mining market in the region. Use the QR code and to download a copy. And next slide. So obviously this will be sent to you participants, so you can download using the code. So this now brings the webinar to conclusion. You will receive a copy of the recording and slides in the follow-up. I would like to thank a big thank to our panelists today, Todd, Mr. Hai, and Johnny, for the fantastic insights. A big thank to Chris for his expert moderation and insightful presentation. I would like also to thank the Austmine team, Jolene and Marina background, providing all the magic to make this webinars work. I also would like to thank Sheldon Varco, who would have been your host today, but he's on annual leave, enjoying himself on his birthday. So thanks for everyone who joined us today at this webinar. We'll see you next time. Stay safe. And if you have any questions, please contact the Austmine team or Austrade team. Thanks everybody.